Okay, we're at that last phase of a project and we want to take it up a notch or two. So we're going to take a look at audio and we're going to take a look at color. Now, these would be the last things that would take place in any project. And I just wanted to give you a couple of points that you could work on to sort of add a little bit more polish to the finished project. You're not going to be a pro at this. None of us are by the time it's done. But let's take a look at viewing the audio. Let's go ahead and click this timeline customization button here. And let's just set it so we can see those audio waveforms as loud as possible. Or rather, as big as possible, I should say. That way we're really focusing on the audio. Now you can see I've disabled all the audio on these clips. But I did want to go ahead and let me just click a few of those on just to take a look at what we might do if we did have some clips with audio. The first thing we want to recognize is that we really shouldn't have any red clips on Final Cut Pro. So these are things that are going to cause a little bit of peaking and that maybe we're going to lose a little bit of clarity in the audio if we have those. So you do want to go all the way through there and make sure that your project doesn't have any of those red peaking things. Another thing you want to do, let's take a look at these clips. Let's say we've got a few clips that we have some audio in them, and let's just take a look and just imagine that there's some degree of unlevelness between them. Essentially, if we've got similar sounds from clip to clip, we want the clips to sort of have a match to them. So you might spend a second to line them up. The next thing that we would want to do if we're really trying to polish off some of the audio, the last thing actually, is to, like we did one other time, expand audio. Control S, I was looking at the wrong one there. And in this case, I'm going to click on each of these and I'm going to hit the period key, and that gives me a little bit of an overlap. And I'm going to hit the comma key, and that's going to give me a little bit of an overlap there. So this is called checkerboarding your audio, and what this does is basically it makes sure it goes smooth, smooth, smooth from one to the next. And you may remember that at one point we went up to modify menu and apply fades, and then what that does is that trims just a little bit of audio off the edge. And actually my fades are a little bit too long. There's a preset for that to tweak, but we'll come back for that later. So that's the audio side of things. You want to, and then I'm going to control click on that. Control S will take me back. You want to have some consistency, and you want to make sure there's no peaking. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to do some colorizing stuff, some tweaking of the color to make it look as good as I can. Now this one I have actually already fixed. So here's what the clip looked like originally, and well, that's not great. So every clip that's in here is kind of just waiting to have a little bit of color correction added. And what color correction does is it lets you adjust the exposure to a certain extent. You can't really fix everything, but you can adjust the exposure a little bit, and it lets you bring out certain colors, and you can do creative things with it, and you can do things to match shots, so a little bit more boring things. But just select a clip and hit Command 6, and that's going to bring open the color correction panel. Well, I had disabled it. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and reset that. Then that way it puts me back to get to where I need to go. Command 6, and that brings open what's called a color board. And then if I hit Command 7, that brings open I'm going to hide the library give me a little bit more room here. That brings open these scopes here, which lets you see the exposure. Essentially, this is a representation of all the pixels in this image across bright all the way down to dark. So the shadows up to the highlights. You can see there's this spot right here is this kind of really, really bright area. And then most of it is just sort of, it's underexposed. And I knew this was happening as I was filming it, but I'm learning from my mistakes. I couldn't stop recording. I had to get this shot, and had I tried to tweak the settings, I may have made the camera wobble, that kind of thing. So I hit Command 6, that gets me the color board. Command 7 gets me the scopes. Now, we're not going to understand these, but just check them out. Watch what I'm doing here. I'm going to hit the exposure button, and I want these middle colors or middle pixels to sort of get a little bit brighter. So as I grab this puck in the middle, that takes all of the middle colors essentially, and the highs and lows, and brings them up a little bit. Now I need to counteract that. I need to bring these shadows back down just a little bit. And I'm going to take the highlights and I'm going to try to get that very, very bright thing right down under 100%. So as I bring this puck down, that gets me down to where I need to go. Then the next thing I like to do is to take the saturation and take the global slider or the global puck and go ahead and bring that up. So you could go up to where it's kind of crazy. That's way too much. And you can go down. So I always like to pull it kind of to the extreme and then pull it down. Normally I wouldn't maybe go quite that high, but you know, let's take a look. This is after. So that's the shot before, that's the shot after, okay? That's one that I like to get on board with. I wanted to do that one more time to this shot. Same situation, I select it, I hit Command 6. I do want to make sure I have the clip selected. I want to make sure the playhead is over the top of it. And I want to just take a look at what we did here to sort of make this one pop. I knew as I was capturing this that this was going to be a good one to do a little color correction too. So Command 6 brings me up. The exposure is not bad, but maybe you could bring those shadows down a little bit. Sometimes you like to get the shadows so that they go down just a little bit under that 0 line. And then the highlights, you can bring those down just a little bit up there. And then you can kind of balance that up by bringing the midtones up a little bit. And then go to the saturation tab. And on this one, I got myself a cool looking car. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up to, well, let's go all the way. Too much. And then slide it down until I don't really seem like I notice it anymore. So maybe it's too much, you know, could be, but it's a good improvement for me. Command 7 will close those scopes. Command 4 will close that inspector. I'm going to pop that open again so that I can enable my color correction. So yeah, that's color correction in a nutshell. There are some thoughts to that where we wouldn't actually color correct without like a broadcast quality monitor. Well, we're just going to kind of roll with what we've got here. So I recommend you take a look at the audio, you take a look at the color, and see if you can take this project up one more notch, even if you think you're done.